This story comes from Spokane, Washington. I was 16, I was heading up there for summer school. When the classes ended, I had a lot of free time on my hands. One day, I was out on my porch, and a friend, you can call him a friend, an acquaintance that I knew from down the street, kind of a weird kid. He'd been in treatment centers, he was a troubled teen, he was a foster kid, he didn't know his parents. His name was Rodney, and he was a very creepy kid. I didn't want to hang out with him, but he was walking by one day, and he said, "Gordon?" And I said, "Rodney?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, great, this kid. I can't stand this kid." He goes, "Hey, man, you want to get high?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." At the time, I was smoking a lot of weed, so I thought it was a good idea. And so Rodney and I started hanging out because we shared a mutual habit. Now, from the first day I saw Rodney when I got back to Spokane, he was telling me about voodoo. And I did what any reasonable person did. I laughed at him, told him he was a white kid from Washington, and told him that voodoo doesn't exist. I was like, fruitcake, right? Rodney was adamant that he knew and could do voodoo, and I consistently made fun of him. Now, after about 3 weeks, maybe a month of hanging out with Rodney, one day I'm sitting there with my sister Shannon and my brother's friend Leroy. Leroy is a Native American dude, really cool, a little bit older. My brother in the time was in jail. Now, Rodney starts going on a rant about voodoo and how he can invoke darkness and all this other weird crap. I did what anybody would do and laughed at him and made fun of him. Rodney didn't like this. It upset him. I was reclined in my chair, I had my feet up, and I'm mocking Rodney. I'm laughing at him. Rodney gets upset and he comes over and he grabs my feet and he flips me in my chair. And so I pop up like a broken jack in the box, right? Ready to fight him because I'm pissed off now. He's pissed off. He wants to fight. And Shannon and Leroy separate Rodney and I. They tell Rodney it's probably best that he goes home. And Rodney's like, "Yeah, whatever, this." He heads home. I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Shannon and Leroy. I'm like, gosh, that kid was always screwed up. He was always messed up. He always had issues, dude. I don't know what the hell I was thinking hanging out with him. He's a weird kid, man. As I'm sitting there talking to them, I realized that my wallet's missing. And so I mentioned this to him. I'm like, "My wallet's gone." And I'm like, "That son of a bitch took it. Rodney stole my damn wallet." And Shannon and Leroy did the reasonable thing. They go, whoa, 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 calm down, calm down. You're mad at him. You lost your wallet. You're trying to blame him for something. You're trying to start a confrontation. Give it a day. Look for your wallet. You'll probably find it. Don't go and cause problems. So taking their advice, I'm like, they're probably right. Now, Shannon had to work that night, so she wound up going to sleep, and Leroy headed back into town. At the time, my sister didn't have any cable in the house or anything to watch or do or anything like that, so with nobody to hang out with and nothing to do, I decided to take a nap as well. So I went into my room and I fell asleep. And I had the worst dream I have ever had. I dreamt that this guy had a tomahawk. I still remember it was a long skinny handle, had a little like stone type, I don't know what you call that, head on it, was wrapped, had feathers on it, and he was taking this tomahawk and he had these 3 women tied up and he's just bashing in their skull. Whap, whap, whap. And I'm screaming at him and I'm trying to stop him. I keep trying to fight him and grab him and stop him, and I can't. Now at the time, the only women that were important in my life was my 2 sisters and my mother. And I think subconsciously these women reminded me of them. And this guy is just bashing in their skulls. Bop, bop, bop. And every time I try to stop him, I get knocked down. I try to go after him and I get knocked down. And there's blood everywhere, vivid red blood, which is very unusual to have in a dream. And I just can't stop him. I feel this sickening feeling and panic, and I wake up. And when I wake up, my alarm clock is going off. It's got music playing. It wasn't like a beep, beep, beep. The music's playing on it. And it was in the corner. And it has now been dragged all the way until the cord is tight, all the way to me as far as it can, without it coming unplugged. I didn't set an alarm, I didn't turn on the music, and I pop up and I'm sweating. I just had the worst dream of my life. And I jump up and I turn it off, and I'm freaked out. I'm looking around, I'm like, what the hell was that? And I hear somebody start a car out front, and I jump up and I look out the window and out into the driveway, and I see my sister Shannon pulling her car out of the driveway. And I thought, that bitch, she scared the crap out of me. She pulled my alarm clock out towards me and set it off after I had one of the worst dreams I have ever had. And I thought, gosh, dude, she is a jerk. I turned off the alarm clock. I was still sweating. I felt sick because of the dream. I didn't feel well. And I did what I hadn't done in a very, very long time. I wound up kneeling down and praying. I'm a little embarrassed to say because I'm agnostic now, but I wound up praying. It made me feel better. And I just remember how sickening the dream was. And then Leroy got back to the house. And I started telling Leroy, I'm like, man, Rodney stole my wallet, that little son of a bitch. And Leroy goes, are you sure? I said, yeah, I looked everywhere for it. I can't find it. He stole it. And he goes, okay, man, we'll go confront him in the morning. It's kind of late, you know, we'll go confront him in the morning. I'm like, all right. And I told Leroy, I said, man, I don't feel good. He goes, you don't look good. He goes, what's wrong? I said, I had the worst dream ever. And he looks at me weird. He gave me a funny look and he goes, what was it about? And I told him, I said, there was this guy and he had these 3 girls tied up and he was just bashing in their skulls and he's killing them and there was blood everywhere. And Leroy has a funny look on his face. And I'm like, what? And he goes, did he have a tomahawk? And my stomach sank because I knew there was no way that Leroy could guess what the weapon was. Out of all the weapons out there, a knife, a bat, an axe, a crowbar, he said a tomahawk, something I hadn't mentioned. And I said, yeah, it was a tomahawk. And he goes, I had the same exact dream and my stomach was in knots. Here's the embarrassing part. We were so convinced that there was a serial killer that we were supposed to stop that we winded up walking around the neighborhood for a good 2 hours. Yet we didn't find anybody. It was just super embarrassing. Anyways, we eventually came back to the house, talked about the dream a little bit more. So morning comes around and Leroy and I go over to Rodney's house to confront him. Now I had $40 in my wallet and Rodney at the time was broke. He wanted to go buy weed and I told him that the $40 that I had was just for food. Food, survival, whatever. Wasn't gonna spend it on weed. So Rodney's broke, I had $40. I go to his house with Leroy and we knock on the door. And a girl that was living with him at the time answers and I tell her that we're pretty sure that Rodney stole my wallet. And she tells me that, you wanna know what, Rodney's mom's been protecting him. He's been really having issues lately. I've been trying to tell her and she hasn't been listening. He probably did steal your wallet. So I tell her, I say, can I go look? She goes, yeah, go ahead. So I go upstairs and I look through his room. His room's a pigsty and I don't find it. So I come back downstairs and I tell her, I said, listen, there's this room, there's this place in the attic that he hides stuff in the garage from his mother. I said, can I look in there? She goes, yeah, of course, you're already in his room. So I go back there, I pull out a chair, I get on top of it and I reach up into the rafters. I feel around and boom, I feel this plate. I pull the plate down and there's my wallet. And it's got, this plate has all these goofy rocks on it, funny colors, little decorations on it, and my wallet is wrapped in chicken wire. And I open it up and there's no money in there. Rodney had went and bought weed with my money, but he had my personal item the same time that I had this horrible, terrible shared dream with Leroy. So I took my wallet, went back, I didn't find anything in Leroy's, and Rodney came over later and I told him, I said, hey, Rodney, I don't want to be friends with you. Get the hell away from me. Stay away from my house. Stay away from my family. He told me, F you. I told him the same thing and he left. Shannon came home later and I asked her if she turned on the alarm clock and dragged it away from the wall. And she said, no, Gordon, I didn't. She said she heard footsteps in my room and then she heard the music play. Was it my sister? No. Was it dark forces? I don't know. You can come up with that conclusion on your own. Happy Halloween.